Welcome to Meet Me for Coffee. Today I have some guests that I've had on before. I have JoAnne Brown from Australia and I have Gina Nicole from the Frequency Key. And today we want to just chat about frequencies. So with that said, I'm going to have JoAnne go first and talk about how she incorporates frequencies in her resonance and what she does to bring the body into balance. JoAnne?
Hi there, Tonya. This is really fun, the three of us getting together like this, especially since we use frequencies in different ways. I guess you'd probably say different applications of the same principle, essentially, the same scientific principles. So my background's in bioresonance therapy, which is a form of frequency therapy where you can introduce therapeutic wave patterns to the body to correct imbalances and dysfunctions. You know, for example, say the liver is not functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, the liver actually functions within a certain optimal frequency range. So if you reintroduce the frequencies from that optimal frequency range to the liver, then you're reminding it of how it is supposed to be functioning. And what I've found in my work, because I tend to combine my frequency work with my intuitive work, I've found that I've been able to apply certain scientific principles using frequencies in my intuitive work and healing work. And it's been quite remarkable, some of the results that I've been able to get. And it's really exciting to be able to share with other intuitives using frequencies in such a positive, uplifting way that helps us physically, mentally, emotionally, and so on. So there's a graphic that I want to share with you right now, and it's this picture. I actually borrowed it from a video about frequencies, and it's this particular slide image describes what we call destructive interference, where you have where it says current 1, that is the original frequency. And if that's a frequency that's not working for you, say it represents the signature wave pattern of a virus or a parasite and it's creating dysfunction in the body, if you introduce the opposing frequency pattern, which is represented on this slide by current 2, you can see where the valleys from current 1 line up with the peaks in current 2. So ultimately, when you combine those two frequencies, that produces a flat line, or essentially negates the effect of the disruptive frequency of the virus, parasite, mold, heavy metal, or whatever. And it's a principle that I've been able to use with great success with my intuitive clients. So, and I know that Gina works with frequencies in a different way, but this is probably the main method I use intuitively, and it's essentially an application of the frequency, my frequency background. So, does that make sense?
I mean, I love it, and it totally makes sense, because in my mind, I went to the generative and the degenerative forces.
Yes.
And to just bring them both together to sync and bring balance, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably from my external training, intuitive training, that is the technique I would say that most aligns with this this application of using frequencies in an intuitive capacity. So
I love it. So Gina, I want you to share how you utilize the frequencies.
Yeah, so it's interesting because in my programming, I love both of your work, and I've had something that I always do is highlight and share when work has really helped me, or I'm super inspired by what people are doing, and it literally is the frequency of what you both are putting out that I'm so drawn to, and that's why that I work with them. So it's really fascinating because my journey started in feng shui. And it started in feng shui because I was sick. I think we all, right? It's like we either are near death or we're sick or something is dysfunctional. And then it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. You can correct it now. And feng shui was what supported me. And what was really happening was it was the frequency of my physical spaces that was rising. And so then my body my other physical space, my body, was able to come into alignment and come into harmony. And I didn't realize it at the time, but in feng shui, we work with what we call the cosmic trinity, which is we refer to as luck. So there's heaven luck, which is your connection with source. There's human luck, which is in the mind, right? And we all have like the itty bitty shitty committee that takes over, which is like completely drops our frequency. And then we have earth luck, which is our body and our home. And that's what I was really mastering at like in my early 20s. It was that earth luck and understanding, but not recognizing that I was really raising the frequency of my body and home. And it was so interconnected. And so now it's like much later working on all three areas, the cosmic trinity, all three areas, that's what I love about Jo's work. And I told her that, like, you do work that combines high frequency in all three areas of body, home, four, body and home are one. It's physical. And so what I was finding, because my passion and what I really help people do is to ignite their own intuition and find answers. So after feng shui, I saw like an angel in this feng shui consult. I never wanted to do angel intuitive work. Well, then everything, like, now I was moving into working with the frequencies of the mind and with spirit. See how this, like, spirit doesn't mess up. So then I was doing readings and people were coming to me like I was some party trick tarot reader, like give me answers and give me psychic information. And then after time, I was like bored. Like I was like, I don't want to be a mind reader. Like this is not fun to do this. And I was really good. I am really good at getting that information, but I'm like, this is like, there's more to this and people can get their own answers. And frequency was the answer to that answer or to that question. So it was like people wanted to ignite their intuition. Then they want to see their angels and they want to get the signs. But then they're eating crap food. They're not taking care of themselves. They're living in clutter and chaos. They don't take, and it's like, well, so that is where I was like, no, the one missing link and the key was frequency. So that's why I call my programming the frequency key, because it really holds people accountable. We look at all three, but really four areas of raising frequency, which really frequency is just the measurement, right? When we say like, oh, live a high vibe life and keep it high vibe, frequency is just that. It's a measurement, that it's a measurement in how fast one thing's moving from one point to another. And if you're living, you're everything has it, right? Like you guys know this, emotions, the clothes we wear, the colors, the feelings, our body language, everything has frequency. Everything has a rate of vibration and it's measurable by hertz. And so, it was like, no, I still do the stuff where people want answers and I'll still entertain that a little bit. But now I'm really devoted to helping people to raise their frequency so they can have a higher vibing experience. So that's my passion.
I love all of that. And what I recognize is like, I get you do the frequency in time, space, the earth plane, and I get the grids, right? Because I'm like, for me, I'm cosmically out there trying to bring it in here. Like that's my crazy, right? And how do I explain my crazy? Well, I don't know how to explain it. I just know what I'm getting the messages, right? And so even with me working with light, that came to me through a vision. Like I was driving down the road, seeing this slumbering white dragon. And I'm like, why am I seeing a dragon? Like it was waking up and going back to bed. And I'm like, what is happening? And this was 20, 30 years ago. And I was driving to my then studio and I got a pamphlet in the mail and their logo was a white yin and yang dragon. So I didn't even question it because that was spirit giving me information, right? A waking vision is what I would call that. So anyway, I brought in the entire product, and it's all based on Chinese medicine, which is, it's basically, I'm doing feng shui on the body. And then the light, that's even a higher elevation of this entire method and philosophy that's been around for since the 70s. It just was coming into the US at that point in time for me. But I didn't question it because I knew my guides were guiding me to be able to work the energy on matter through the body, through the chakras, through the meridians with product alone. Like it's this whole layering effect. And then I brought in the other frequencies of, you know, the star grid, the galaxy grid, and then the man grid within this elemental realm, right? So, and it is just that, the ability to literally look at a body and know where they're fractured is what I want to say, or their frequencies are, it's like a, for me, it's like the record, you know, not that we really listen to records anymore, but when the needle on the record, it's like, woo. But then it's if the client will listen, which for me has been like the hardest part to bring into balance, is the listening, because my visions are so not in the world of, you know, go, like my son even makes fun of me all the time. He'll tell his friends, oh, what did she tell you to do? Raise your right hand and put your left hand on your butt cheek and paint it blue. Well, maybe that might be something I do. But, you know, even I've worked on people with Bell's palsy, and I know it's the gallbladder meridian. Like, I just know they have resentment, regret, and, you know, they all flow together like a rooted system in the body between heaven and earth.
Yeah.
So you need to bring in those frequencies again, just like you, JoAnne, into balance to create that time and space.
Yeah. One thing that I was thinking as you were talking was, there seems to be a band of entities that relate to different microbial groups, and I'm talking from my area of expertise here, and it's I find it really exciting that you know, you're experiencing the same thing, what you find with, you know, the color bands and the fact that Bell's palsy relates to the gallbladder meridian. Yeah, I have found similar associations, and I find it really exciting because once you recognize these trends, then you can be applying that learning, that knowledge, that wisdom to help somebody else as well. And that seems to happen a lot. There's this enmeshment of connections that we're making, and we're recognizing trends and making these connections that are apparently disconnected, but we're finding these connections and networks that actually work, and frequency has to be behind it. That's my only explanation for it, that it is about resonating frequencies.
And when Tonya was talking on that note, like when we talk about things, I'm going to share my screen really quick with you guys. This, you know, what's interesting, so the feng shui that I practice is the Bagua map. I do BTB feng shui. And when you're talking about body and resonance, well, you can like this is the Bagua map for your body. So you might be working with career, but then it can also show up physically in your ears. I mean, it's just so interesting because the Bagua map also correlates and connects to each body part. So in terms of frequency and how it resonates, it's all one energy. And so, and I burp, whenever I burp, I always think it's like they're yelling at you, you know, it's like, this is really important. But it all overlaps and interweaves, and it's all so important. And I think it's, you know, what this whole whatever we're going through right now is teaching everyone is that there is an undeniable connection, and frequency is the link. I mean, there is an undeniable connection and awakening, or whatever you want to call it, ascension that's happening. And frequency is linked. Like, we all need to be responsible for our frequency.
And so, you know, what I've noticed with what's happening is people, they've forgotten to tune into themselves. They're waiting for everybody else to tell them what to do. And they've disconnected from their higher self that actually has their own light, their own grid. And the second you tune in to that, instead of, like, I've had several clients, but one of them that sticks out is she was breaking out in a rash, and it would come and go different areas of her body. And her husband had both retired, and their idea of retirement and living, they literally went to the doctor every month like clockwork, whether they were sick or not. It was just their habit. And finally I just told her, I said, honestly, I don't think your meds are getting along. Like, they're not getting along. I said, take them all to the pharmacy because they're not getting along. And I mean, and sure enough, she didn't do it, but 8 months later, she ended up in the emergency room because her meds weren't getting along. Mm-hmm. It's just simple questions like that. Like when I say the listening, like, listen to your body. And then I had another client who came to me and his entire body was red. And so I'd worked energetically, mostly on earth and fire and this whole thing. And then finally one day, because it was a combination of eczema and psoriasis. So I knew it was an earth imbalance, inflammation. But I went to his house energetically, right? The frequency in the home, total chaos. I ended up cleaning this guy's house, like focused on one room at a time and made him throw clutter out. So it was like the home where he physically slept versus his body. Anyway, it took a few years, but not only because I had to change his eating, the foods were bad, the home was filthy. It was like, oh my gosh. But he lost 100 pounds. He's off crappy food. So, I mean, it's fascinating how when you speak to the energy and you just, you know, sometimes you have to be the one to go smack somebody in the butt to get them to shift their frequency. But once they get there, then they look back and they're like, oh my gosh, because they get stuck in their mind trap, right?
Totally. And it's so much easier to want to just like, oh, this is too, I don't even know what this is, isn't working. Because it's not, like, to move from one frequency level to the next is not easy. I mean, that's why I do what I do, because I like to be able to hold the space and accountability for people to stay actionable, because it's so much easier to be like, oh, I don't know, the world's falling apart. I don't, like, the snake is shedding, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go back to eating Doritos. Like, it's so much easier to just stay in the, it's like moving. You're literally moving homes. It's a pain to have to, like, bring the moving truck in and you move all the furniture. I mean, to move frequency levels is a pain, and it's so much easier for people to just stay in their caca house, but then because of that, so that's, I mean, it's so important to come into community. Right before this call, I'm doing this other online summit, and before this call, I had to do like a 1 to 2 minute blurb on, my view on society and why I do my part in society to help society be a better place. And society is really like it's our school, right? And it's our school because it's where people come together, and then it's like, well, I don't like that in you, so I need to change that in me, or I like this in you. And I found my answer to that was frequency. Like, how can I be a better person and come into connection in society? But, like, it's all about raising my frequency. So that I could, so the subtle energy works its way out. But I think people, as simple as it can be, it is really difficult, and people don't know what to do. We do. It can be really hard. I didn't. I mean, I had like a failing body, and it was like, I don't know, I didn't take care of myself. But a lot of people just don't know what to do that. And it can be so different for everyone.
I think it's really exciting, Gina, what you shared about the, I always pronounce it wrong, the Bagua and
Mhm.
how it relates to the different parts of the body. I've not actually seen that before in relation to the human body. So I think I need to sign up for one of your courses just to come up to speed, because that I can see the application in that in terms of how your physical space in the home is going to impact each aspect of your physical body. That's a great connection.
Yeah, and it's so accurate. I mean, to the point where if you are having, like, here, let me just pull it up one more time so that I can share it with you guys. But let's say, like, I had a client recently who's having like major stomach issues. And in this section, she had a bathroom, and the bathroom was totally leaky. The toilet wasn't working, and there was a leaky faucet. And it was like, okay, well, let's do what we can to like correct that, because all of those leaks, that's like, you know, there was sha chi and leaky energy. I mean, it was all a mess. And I kid you not, it was like a week after she put the final touch on that, and everything in her tummy cleared up. You know, I mean, it's really, truly amazing. And then I believe that everything in our, I mean, just like everything on your body has a spiritual connection, I think everything in our home has a spiritual connect. You know, like your walls are boundaries, and your windows are eyes of opportunities and communication with children, and your floor is your ability to ground. So it's like we have to, if we really start leaning into the frequencies and emotions of our home, like if you give your home, think of your home as having emotions, because everything vibrates. I mean, my God, this is how I had my first shift. You know, I was like, wow. And right now with everything that we're experiencing, you know, this is metal, head and mouth and lungs, metal. Well, what's the virus that we're all up against? It's metal, lungs. You can't make this up if you tried. You know, so it's like I'm encouraging people to clean and your front door is here, right? So I'm encouraging people to clean their side right center of their homes, and to tune in and see what's there, and are there dying plants, you know? So it's really, it is very fascinating, and it works.
Yeah.
With intention.
Just as a little bit of feedback, that space in my home is my workspace. And what is happening for me at the moment is my work is evolving at an accelerated rate at the moment. Everything is changing about what I do and how I do it. So just seeing that confirmation in that graphic is really light bulb stuff for me.
Yeah, so. Because it's what you're doing, and you're like thriving in that area, you know? It's really amazing. I mean, it's so amazing, the tools that are available. And like I said, I think it's simple. It's just not necessarily, I mean, it does take effort. We have to want it. And then I always say, you know, the higher your vibe, the smaller your tribe. So then that's hard too, because then people, like, that's feedback I hear from my clients a lot. Is like, oh, well, I don't even know who I am anymore. My friends are, you know, I don't know who to trust, and my friends are moving away, and I don't and I'm like, well, yeah, well, you know, that's what happens. You don't have to be friendless, but yeah.
You know, it is funny. And I think, I mean, just my journey is like, I have shifted friends so often, because when I start doing what I do, it either scares the holy shizzle out of them, because they're like, how are you doing that? Because they've lost their connection to spirit. It's like, hello, I have a helper, which is your helper, you know, tuning into your grid here. And it does. So what I find is they've either attracted to me to get them going on their frequency, and then they disappear, and then they come back when they recognize their frequency is fallen again. So it's almost like you're always, like for me, I'm always constantly cleaning up my clutter so I can clean up their clutter to keep, so when they return for more,
It's so true. I have can I share a really good example that I have from my life around this? So when it comes to like people and frequencies, so I, before I met my now husband, I was dating this dude in Chicago, and it was, it was a fun connection, but whatever. He never met my family, and so I was a flight attendant at the time, and I flew into Chicago, and I had seen him, and it was really interesting. We were having, we just had seen each other, then we were going to go to dinner. And for whatever reason, I was at that time in my life too, where I was like comfortable with who I was, but not necessarily everybody knew about it. And he knew about it, but he was like, I don't really know how I feel about this. Well, I had like a full-on mediumship experience, and his friends who had died, it was his friend's brother who had died, came in, told me all this information. I gave it to him, and he was like, how do you know all that? Like, it was a really detailed information. And before I said it, I knew. My heart was racing. I was in panic mode. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do, I knew I had a choice. I'm like, I know I wanted to do this for a living. And I knew in that moment, I said, I could either say this and I most likely will lose this relationship, or I can just stay in this and keep it, I can just stay safe and be right here. And I was like, nope, F it. I'm doing this because I don't want to live here in this vibe anymore. So I told him. He freaked out. We went to dinner. At dinner, we talked about, I'm going to meet his dad. Okay, yeah, let's come up with a plan. Went back up to the room, and no joke, he was like, I'm going to go down and get, some water from the gift shop. I'll be right back. He called me from the tollway and was like, I cannot do this. I am so sorry. That freaks me out. I can't accept this part of you. I was trashed, devastated, on my knees, like crying. I met my husband 2 weeks later and then was able to just freely live. And then that guy ended up calling me a month later. I was like, hey, and I'm like, nope, I met someone. He's like, you did not. I'm like, nope, I did. Done. It was just, it was that quick. It's like, I didn't realize how much like being comfortable in a lower frequency, and it was so hard, and it broke my heart, but my gosh. And I knew, I was like, if I want to do this, and he was just gone just like that. I was crying. I was so sad, but yeah, I met my husband 2 weeks later. It's like crazy, but not really. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
So, I love that because so it's in a way you were there for him, Gina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then when that was dissolved, then you could go back on your journey.
Yeah. And you want to know, another test that came was later. Then he contacted me again 6 months later and was like, oh, I hear that you're living in St. Louis. Because when we were dating, I was living in California. He said, well, maybe we can meet up because you're close. And I was like, no, I'm living in St. Louis with my boyfriend now. Like, at the time. And he was like, oh, like wasn't expecting that. And then he asked, do you remember when that happened? Like, I want more information. And I was like, honestly, that's not my cup of tea. I don't know what happened. That's not my expertise. That's not something I do. And, frankly, I wouldn't even say to hire me because that's not something I want to do for you. And that was another big test. And I just told him no. That was not test, but it was another big opportunity to leap. Because it's just, it could be easier, so yeah, it was like and then now living in St. Louis, there's just, I've been here about 5 years, and I have a lot of community, but I have very few really close friends that but it's beautiful. There's such connected relationships that are so heartfelt.
That's lovely. So it just really stepped up a notch for you. You just went from one frequency band to the next level up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And there were a lot of tears, but I could have played it really safe by staying in a home frequency that was cozy and living in the slums. Okay, I wasn't really living in the slums, but I wasn't I was living in an apartment, right? Like now I get to live in a normal neighborhood. I'm speaking metaphorically, but yeah, I could have stayed at this home frequency that was just so, and I could have been too scared and, but I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And I listened and I took action, and that's nothing special about me. We all have the capacity to do that.
But I mean, obviously it just opened you up, and your light went bright. It's like, woohoo, she's arrived, right?
Totally. But how many people do you both think? I mean, I'm really like, how many people do you see, like clients that you see that you work with, that you're like, come on, take that leap, come on. And then you hear from them like, 6 months later, and they're like, no, I still haven't done that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's bad. I just think that not enough people understand the opportunity to really unleash their full potential when it comes to frequency. I mean, that's really how it's such an easy, but yes, work way. It's such an easy pathway to unlock, as Jo would say, manifest your full potential.
Yeah. It's a fascinating area, because I know myself, and there's times when you have a bad day or you're feeling a little bit down, and you recognize that you're slipping back into the older patterns that do pull you down back into, like a previous stage of life that wasn't so pleasant. And, it can remind you of people that you're glad you're no longer associating with, and it's a really good motivator to step back where you are and to keep striving and to keep, increasing your frequency, the quality of, the frequency level as well.
I always tell people there's magic on the other side of fear, right? Mm-hmm. Because fear is false evidence affecting our reality. And how often do we question our reality or our illusion of reality, right? So like, I always have to have the conversation, is this for me or is this for them? Like, I am always sourcing, because sometimes I'm hugely hard on myself, because I know I'm pretty blunt and direct, especially when people aren't listening. I'm usually pretty compassionate, but after a while it's like, dump the guy. Like, I don't want to hear this story anymore. And they just look at you like, what? I'm like, yes, dump or whatever it is, get, like, even when you get fired from a job, the universe is moving you because you weren't listening, whatever it is, get a new car, whatever, it doesn't matter. The universe speaks a whole nother language, and you're wishing and attracting something, but when it shows up, you shove it aside, and the universe is like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. So then it takes over and it does it for you. So it just cracks back. Now that's what cracks me up.
Yeah, and then people resist it. I always say that fear for me, I love that you have acronyms. I'm an acronym person, and I have acronyms for everything. So I say that fear is forgetting everything angels represent, and faith is finding angels in the heart. So if you really knew that there was like a heavenly sent angel right there that was like, here, let me take your hand and guide you. It's like, that's what you're supposed to do. And then when you have fear, oh, I forget that. I forget that I'm forgetting everything angels represent. That's right. If I had an angel that was right there with me and I knew that I couldn't fail, because I do agree that like everything will be lined up for you. And from my experience, I also think like when it comes to the laws, the universe also really doesn't care. It's not like, it's like you get to choose. Like it's like this, you could either do it the hard way or not, but like, I don't care your breath. Like, I don't care how you do it. It's not, it's just a very fascinating thing that we put ourselves through. And then the more, don't you agree that the more you take the leaps and move through the fear, the more that you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And then you just do. And once in a while you fall. It's fine. You get back up. We get back up.
So true. So true.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely.
Yeah, it goes back to Jo's diagram, like the ebbing and flowing. If you fall, you just get that. It's you even out, and then you just feel a new feeling, and then you move on. So it's I love this topic. I love that you chose it.
Well, I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my frequency girls on here. This is what all three of us do. We're our own little triangle. I mean, we do it all differently, but it's all really the same magic. We just approach it in different ways, you know, and it's not being fearful when you know, express to someone, not that they really need to understand what you're doing, because I don't tell a lot of people what I'm doing. I'll give them a prescription in nature or an elemental, something to do, because in doing the prescription, it puts the action behind the frequency to get it moving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they have to meet me somewhere. Like the gentleman I talked about, his skin condition, you know, single guy, lived off fast food for 30 plus years. Well, your body's not getting any vitality, any nutrition. So so basically I was making him smoothies every day and tea. I had to get him off sugar totally. We tease about it now that I should have taken before and after pictures of his body, his eating, his home, like everything, because I literally had to clean up everything.
Wow.
You're like the spiritual Hoover. Speaking of food, do you want me to share that pyramid?
Oh, yes, please do.
For people, I mean, I know a lot of people have probably seen this, but this is the food frequency pyramid, and you know, it's just something to really consider, I think, for people. And it's, you know, the higher you go, like this is frequency, obviously. So up here is your higher and up here is your lower, and this is like the megahertz. So just consider this. And I'm not saying, look, if you eat a burger or you eat meat, like I'm not judging you. I don't care. Eat meat. Like I eat a little bit of meat here and there, mostly not, but I'm not judging you. But like if you do have a piece of pizza, then, you know, come up here and have some chlorophyll and essential oils. And by the way, I do ingest essential oils, but full disclosure, I only do it through a line that is safe. So I do not recommend ingesting essential oils unless you know about that. Chlorophyll, you know, eating these higher vibe foods. Every morning I have lemon water. Every, you know, day, well, not every day, but a few times a week I'll have raw chocolate, the raw cacao, or chaga tea. So like for every, you know, thing that you eat down here, try to add these. The majority of the foods that I eat are here from the earth and from the trees. This is the majority of what I eat. And then I tend to skip this altogether. I don't do this. Occasionally, though, I will have some meat because I need meat to ground once in a while. And I just go with that. Whatever. You have to feel into your body. There's no right or wrong. So I think this is just a really good way to kind of understand, like, it's, you know, if it's from the earth, it's a little lower. If it's from the trees, it's a little higher. If it's working towards the sun, so the higher the food is grown, literally the higher the frequency. So this is a really good graphic and just inspiring for some people to understand with food, because we are what we eat, right?
Can I just add something to this, Gina, about this graphic?
Oh, please.
Because when I look at it, the ones that are at the lower frequencies, they're the more acidic foods, and the ones that are higher are more alkaline. So, and as we know, it's the acidic foods lead to degeneration, inflammation, disease states, autoimmune issues, and so many other things. So it's really sound from a I guess scientific perspective as well, which is where I tend to live. So
yeah, which I love about you. And also, you know, I will say on that note, like I just heard so much about eat alkaline. Well, you know, I didn't know this. Like my body's too alkaline, and I didn't know that was a thing. So I was eating really alkaline, and then I started to pay attention to my pH levels. So if you don't even know what Jo's talking about and you're watching, like I would recommend to even understand where your starting point was, because I didn't know. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to eat all these alkaline. And my body specifically needs a little bit of acidity. So I think everybody's different, but like, yes, absolutely. And I tried to really eat accordingly to that, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So to have some meat, I think is balanced. But even when you look at portion sizes, you know, your vegetables, your salads is going to take up a bigger portion of the plate than your meat and the acidic, lower frequency foods that
Yeah.
you
And
described.
then, you know, I had a client recently that told me, oh yeah, I know that you shared that and blah, 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 but you know, it doesn't affect me. Like, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But then things weren't moving, things weren't shifting, and she couldn't get it. Like, she was like, oh, well, I don't really understand like how what I'm eating is going to affect like the job that I'm trying to manifest. Okay, that's fine. I don't have, you know, just, well, eventually she, you know, you suffer in silence long enough. She's like, okay, I'm going to try this. She literally did a detox, got fired, and got a new job like the next week. And I'm like, okay, do you believe me now that it's all like, we need to pay attention in all of these areas? We have to. It's not, you know, but I'm never going to like argue with somebody or do the work for you. But that's definitely where she was lacking. And that was always, you know, she was justifying, like, oh no, I'm fine. I don't have. And the majority of food things that we have, we don't even know that they're like, you know, we don't know that our body is discorded or allergic because we just don't even know any different. But when you really start paying attention to it, yeah, so I think we just have to do what we can to make better choices. Another really good tip for people, you know, I don't know, they're gone now, but I have in my house, if you walk around my house, you will see several lemons placed through all around my house, like the different Bagua maps, because lemons are 50 megahertz. And if your space is low frequency, your lemons are gonna like mold or turn green or get fuzzy. And if your space is high frequency, your lemons will start to age in a really lovely way. Now, that it doesn't mean that they're not going to get dark. They'll get dark, but they won't be like fuzzy or green or moldy. So that's a really good, like if you think that the energy in your house is good, and then you can do, you know, I keep one in all of the Bagua maps. I just had my house cleared, and so I redid all the lemons. I need to get more, but I have a few stuff. So you want lemons to age in your house, and you do them individually. You don't keep them together, but you want them to age, you know, get dark, and then eventually you could hear the seeds, and that'll tell you what the energies, what the frequency is doing in your home. It's an easy way.
That's a great tip. That's fantastic. I've just written that down actually. Lemons, buy lemons.
Yeah, buy 9 and put them all around the different Bagua map. You know, it's interesting. It'll give you really good information.
Yeah, I need one in my workspace. See what's going on here.
Oh, that'll probably grow a flower.
It's so true though. Like, I mean, I do that at my studio too, different areas. I'll put a plant in an area. I have a selenite instead of a salt lamp in a different area. And I just watch how they, you know, even if the light bulb blows out real fast, you know, because you know something's drying off the energy faster if, you know, one light bulb burns out faster than another in space and time, right?
So true. Yeah, all of it. It's so true. It's crazy how great it is. I mean, it's beautiful. It's awesome. Like, it doesn't even awe me anymore. I'm just thankful for like the small miracles every day, you know? It's just such a better life.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to share, JoAnne?
I was just really taken by, both of you gave examples of working with, you know, Gina's example of the ex-boyfriend and so on, and how she kind of gave him an opportunity to make shifts, but there has to, and you also gave an example too about, you know, the man that you were working with. There has to be a personal investment, regardless of, you know, we can play a role in people's lives as healers, intuitives, mentors, in all of those capacities. But if the people we're working with aren't willing to take steps themselves, then the change is not going to happen. And I just found that I was listening to both of you, and that kind of theme was coming through. I just was really struck by that, because I've found the same thing. You know, I've had clients turn up and they're like, fix me, and they lay on the massage table, wanting me to hook them up to my machine, my frequency generating machine. And there has to be a personal investment, whether it's a change in diet, whether it's taking on a different mindset, but people have to be willing to make a change, a shift. So
it's so true. The gentleman I was talking about, he has a bunch of money, like a lot of money. Okay, like this little virus isn't affecting him at all. And what I found with him is because he has money to spend, here, let me just dish it out and it'll fix me. Well, no, you still have to do the work. Not that I don't value and appreciate the money, but I don't want to see you every day. Not that I didn't, right? But it's like, okay, you really need to do this for you.
yeah.
And he's 85 and he doesn't even look it, because mind you, I still work on him twice a week. I'm working with frequency through my light. I'm moving fluids. I know his Chinese biorhythm, his 5 elements, what's balanced, what's out of balance, the energy of the year that's coming in. Then we have the because I've worked on him for so long. So now it's to the point where he can't lie to me because I already know. Like, what did you do? What kind of sugar are you adding to your coffee again? Is your coffee ground or did you get the process? I mean, we're to that level of, I'm like this mother whipping him over how he's treating his body. And then when he feels like crap, I'm like, what did you eat 2 days ago?
Yeah.
It's just,
that's awesome though. Good for him that I mean, look at him. What an example to society. I mean, that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy. Like, have somebody keep me accountable, because the truth is too, like, we are human and it's really easy to want to eat the donut or the processed cake, and we have to do everything in moderation, including moderation. It's like, what an awesome life. Like, I want to be him. to have somebody to really keep me accountable in my frequency. That's probably why he's doing so good.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it is fascinating on that aspect, because I know, like, your body, like for me, if I eat anything bad, within 15 minutes, I am a slug. It's like, oh, why did I eat that donut? Not that I do, but I'm just using that example. I just can't. So it's like, meh. And what else I think is funny, once you're so aware of frequencies, just being around a donut makes me feel crappy. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, I know what that, ooh, wash my hands up,
yeah.
Around it. It's like, meh. That's how weird I am now.
Eventually you're just gonna like get to this, but you'll be at that like top tier level of frequency that's just like, ethereal, and you're not touched by anything. It's like, I don't know. Watch.
I am really getting so funny about food. Like, I might get to the point where I just consume liquids and I am so ethereal, because it's getting that funny for me. Like, I was like, even my assistant, she was like, I never see you eat. I'm like, yeah, I know. I eat differently is what I tell her, because I think there's other frequencies you can like infuse to sustain. So yeah.
I agree. Well, there's like people in the mountains somewhere in the world, I forget where I was reading, that like haven't eaten in years. I don't know who they are, and I don't want to be those people, because I do really love to eat. But I do think that we can be fed in other ways. And there's people alive that have proven that. I just don't know the study off the top of my head. Yeah.
Anyway, anything else, ladies, you want to share before we close the show?
Nothing from me. I've just really enjoyed this interaction and being able to, I've learned so much from both of you at the same time, while we're, realizing that, looking at frequencies from different aspects, there's still always more to learn about, something that I've been, invested in for over more than 12 years, from my particular perspective, but, hearing from both of you, I've learned so much today. So thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so true. I mean, I think there's so many different levels of frequencies. And like for me, like if one level doesn't work, then I divert to another. Like, and I'm not afraid to reach out to people. That's kind of my other thing, because my dudes will show me. It's like, oh, this is happening. Who out on the grid does this? And that's kind of how I mean, I was explaining to Malidoma when we were doing a shaman circle. Somebody didn't get how I tune in. Well, I was like, well, it's like Tinker Toys, and then there's these little pods. So there's these little Tinker Toys all with little posts everywhere, and it was like, well, how do you know when to stop? I'm like, well, they usually direct me. I'm not like just out there picking up on bugs and things. Not that I haven't done that too, but it just kind of, it's the layering effect. Even like telepathy, like I recognized long time ago, I turned off that gift I had because I was just climbing into people and reading their thoughts all the time. Well, when you're in high school, not everybody wants you to read their thoughts, just so you know. So I remember one person in high school, and to this day, he's still afraid of me because, and it wasn't even like a bad juju thought. It was just, I picked up on his frequency and I just pulled it in and came out my mouth, you know? So it's stuff like that. So I tend to keep certain things inside a little bit more because I don't want to be that abrupt viral tongue-ish stuff. But sometimes you just have to speak that authentic truth to wake people up, to like get them going.
Yeah, because so that you could be the reflection for them. You know, that's my like advice on frequency is like, look at, like, I'm looking at the two of you and I'm like, gosh, it's just so awesome to be in a connection, you know, and both of you really reflect back to me the expert that you are within your own fields, and the passion and the drive that you know, so it's like, gosh, that really encourages me to do more, you know, it inspires. So like, that's what frequency is all about. It's like being a better person and doing your part to be a better reflection for everybody else. And yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies, thanks for joining me for my Meet Me for Coffee. I will have leads or notes in my show notes on how to connect with either JoAnne or Gina Nicole if you're into upgrading your frequency that you are frequenting. And I will see you on the other side. Ashe.